hear me okay? Excellent. Yeah, I think Xavi, framed it up nicely. Ingelvac PRRS MLV, past, present, future, and I'm sure that they selected me for this presentation because I am the old guy and been here probably longer than anybody. I also realize that I'm the last thing between everyone and lunch, so I'll be quick but not hurry. Here we go. I wanted to start with this slide because as I sat down with some colleagues at BI, we kind of talked about where we've been and where we're at and what's transpired during this 24 years. And we call this narrowing the funnel or incremental advances in PRRS control, moving toward system-based approaches and even area regional control-based approaches. And so if you look at that large circle that's kind of a funnel, designed as a funnel, at the top you have what we're calling the PRRS cloud. So 24 years ago, in our industry, PRRS was everywhere. Gilt pools, breeding herds, growing pigs, it was a cloud of PRRS virus. And then with the advent of vaccine, we started to generate and develop data to better understand the role vaccine-derived immunity plays as it regards reducing clinical disease. Reducing clinical disease, improving health and performance. Vaccine-derived immunity, and we call that the direct benefit. So starting to shrink that funnel a little bit, okay? And then subsequent to that, we thought, while we're doing that, while we're improving health and performance, our perception was that we're also reducing the level of viral circulation and transmission of wild-type virus within and between populations, okay? We call that the indirect benefit, and we generated some data to support that, okay? The role of vaccine-derived immunity reducing the level of PRRS load, if you will, or the transmission of virus, okay? And then beyond that, thinking about, okay, if we understand the role of vaccine having the direct and indirect benefit, how do we best apply that with other complementary components of PRRS control? Biosecurity, okay, pig flow, husbandry, things that have been talked about earlier today. How do we apply that in a systematic whole herd methodology for best PRRS control principles, okay? Really focusing then on maximizing immunity, minimizing exposure by phase of production, okay? That's where we're trying to funnel down to and hopefully get to that point in the road, stay there, and maybe even improve beyond that. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is cross-protection. It's an important topic relative to vaccines. Good vaccines have to demonstrate cross-protection, especially with a virus like PRRS that's been talked about earlier. It recombines, it mutates, it's constantly changing and evolving. And we wanted to talk about global cross-protection and, again, just kind of leverage the 24 years of experience and studies that we've done, not only in the U.S. and in Mexico and Canada, but globally across really 19 countries generating cross-protection evidence. So I'm going to, why cross-protection, why heterologous protection is probably one of the most important fundamental questions we get asked. Will the vaccine that we have today cross-protect to the strains that are currently circulating in my farm, my system, or in my area? It's important. Understanding again that we have new emerging strains, will the vaccine continue to offer cross-protection to those strains? Okay, it's important, and I'm going to click through this slide and you'll get an idea of what's been done by country, globally, over the last 24 years. And each one of these points that represents a country also represents studies and publications from those studies, each and every one which have demonstrated significant cross-protection with the vaccine against a heterologous challenge. So you get the idea, there's been a lot done, and as PH has often said, they're not all up there, but this is enough to give you a good idea. Beyond that, just more than 70 Congress abstracts presented, more than 25 peer-reviewed publications presented, and it's not, some of it's old, but I think what's important, it's ongoing. And so even just 2017, just last year, we had 7 peer-reviewed publications, and there's more coming. So because of the importance of this question, it's an ongoing process, something we started in 1996 and have carried on to today and beyond. Okay. Now, I thought also we would just look at a few examples of that heterologous protection, just to give you an example of what we do and how it's measured. And we can't look at all those examples. So for today, we're picking out 3. Up at the top on the right-hand side, you'll see a challenge study that used SDSU 73 as a challenge isolate. That'll be later in the presentation. We're calling that a challenge dose study, which is a pretty cool study. The first 2 we'll look at, though, is both of these studies done in the U.S. The first one is a 174 heterologous challenge study where we evaluated cross-protection with Ingelvac PRRS MLV. And then I have one slide on the 134 PRRS virus challenge. I'm using RFLP cut patterns as kind of a nomenclature to communicate which challenge isolate we use, but I think everybody in the room is comfortable with that kind of nomenclature. All right. So this first one is the 174, what we call the 174 challenge study, and this was recently, it was done just a little over a year ago and recently presented at ASV. And I just want to set up the challenge design, the challenge model a little bit. You can see that we had 2 vaccinated treatment groups. We had a Fostera PRRS vaccinated treatment group with 45 pigs, and of course an Ingelvac PRRS vaccinated treatment group with 45 pigs. And with any of these challenge models, we also have the non-vaccinated placebo group, okay, and I believe there were 65 pigs in that group. These are pretty standard challenge models in the growing respiratory model. Pigs are vaccinated at day 0. They're about 3 to 4 weeks of age, okay, and then 4 weeks later, 28 days later, they're challenged, and in this case, they're challenged with a virulent field isolate of PRRS virus 174, and this particular isolate came from the hog-dense region of North Carolina. And then we have the important 14-day post-challenge period where we evaluate clinical signs, post-challenge viremia, average daily weight gain, lung lesions, those things, and we'll look at the results. All right, so if we look at lung lesions, these are day 42 or 14 days post-challenge, you can see that we had a good challenge. The non-vaccinated placebos had 25.5% lung lesions, about what we expected with this particular isolate. It's being reported in the field as being very severe clinically, okay? To PH's point, when we take that isolate and put it into an uncomplicated PRRS challenge model in the lab, it's not quite as significant or as brutal or nasty as what's being reported in the field. And I think PH made some comments to that. This is a kind of a pristine environment, these controlled challenge studies, but it still generated severe lesions and severe disease. Both vaccinated groups, Ingelvac and Fostera, had significant reduction of lung lesions, so that's good. Evidence of heterologous protection, but you'll notice there's a numerical difference between Ingelvac and Fostera, 8.4% with Ingelvac PRRS and 12.9 or 13% with Fostera. Let's look at average daily weight gain. Here's a little more separation. Again, with the non-vaccinates, you can see they grew very little at all. 0.24 pounds per day during that 14-day post-challenge period, about 109 grams per day. And the Ingelvac PRRS vaccinated group had a significant improvement in average daily weight gain, 0.61 pounds per day. And again, the Fostera PRRS vaccinated group fell out in the middle, and 0.49 pounds per day. And statistically, that's the difference between that and Ingelvac PRRS is trending towards significance at a p-value of 0.1. So again, a numerical difference trending towards significance. Let's look at post-challenge viremia. This is really important. We expect that a good vaccine generating good heterologous protection will reduce post-challenge viremia. And we typically see that each and every time we do one of these studies. And with this 174 challenge study, I'll just focus you on day 42, so 14 days post-challenge. And it's probably a hard graph to see, but you can see that the blue bar represents the Ingelvac PRRS MLV vaccinated group, and at 14 days post-challenge, it is demonstrating significant reduction in the post-challenge viremia compared to both the non-vaccinates and Fostera vaccinated group. So again, evidence of heterologous protection against this really current and relevant PRRS virus challenge. Okay? And then this is very new. We just completed this study not too long ago, and you're probably one of the first groups to see some of this information. Like the 174 isolate, the 134 isolate began to be detected in the U.S., primarily in the upper Midwest, a little bit in North Carolina. And the clinical history that we get is very, very severe, even worse in many cases than the 174 exposures in the field. When we put this isolate into pigs, you can see from our challenge study, which was done very similar to the 174, where we have 2 vaccinated groups, Ingelvac PRRS MLV and Fostera, again in a non-vaccinated group. There's 33 pigs in each of the vaccinated treatment groups, and I think 35 in the non-vaccinated group. Again, they're challenged 28 days post-vaccination, and then necropsied at day 42 or 14 days post-challenge. So we have that same 14-day post-challenge period that we evaluate. Here we're looking at lung lesions, average daily weight gain, and percent mortality. And it's not uncommon in these challenge studies that we see very little, if any, mortality in an uncomplicated lab-based PRRS challenge. But you can get an idea of the severity of this particular challenge. We had 61% mortality in the non-vaccinates, 58% lung lesions in the non-vaccinates. Okay? Pretty severe challenge. Now, fortunately, what we saw, if we look at lung lesions, again, a significant reduction in lung lesions with Ingelvac PRRS compared to the non-vaccinates. Also, reduction with Fostera PRRS, but again, that numerical difference between Ingelvac and Fostera that seems to be repeatable. If we look at mortality, I'll skip over to mortality. Again, a significant reduction in mortality compared to the non-vaccinates, both with Ingelvac PRRS and Fostera PRRS. Okay, which is good, evidence of cross-protection. But with average daily gain, again, Ingelvac PRRS showed a significant improvement in average daily gain compared to the placebos, which lost weight. In that 14-day post-challenge period, that's a negative 0.25 pounds per day. So they lost weight. And in between is Fostera PRRS, which is significantly poorer in this particular study than Ingelvac PRRS. So there was a significant difference between Ingelvac and Fostera in this 134 challenge model. All right. So if we just conclude with the cross-protection, a couple of these cross-protection studies as examples, we tag that to all of what we've done, and there's multiple controlled experimental and field-based research studies that demonstrate heterologous efficacy with Ingelvac PRRS. We're calling that the direct benefit. I mean, I think that's the thing that everybody in this room wants and needs with their producers. You want a vaccine that offers cross-protection to strains that are current and relevant to you and your systems and your areas, mitigate the consequences of infection, improve health and performance. We're calling that the direct benefit. That's important. All right. I put this slide up here, and I need to give acknowledgement and credit to Dr. Chris Rodemaker. He's in the audience from Iowa State, and he was a key part of us doing this study. I wanted to put this up here, and you'll see this slide used about 2 or 3 more times throughout the presentation as a field-based example. So while we do a lot of experimental work, we also have to take what we learn and translate it to the field. Okay, so let's take the vaccine and appropriate protocols to the field, and this represents a large-scale, long-term PRRS control project. This was done in the system in the U.S., 70,000 sows, 3-site production, with a little downstream flow of pigs in close proximity to breeding herds and the gilt pools. And table 1 is what I want you to focus on in this slide, and this represents the impact of a PRRS control program in the growing pig component of this system. The before column represents closeout information, both nursery and finisher, before the intervention. The after column represents same nursery and finisher closeout information for about 15 to 18 months after the intervention. So it's about 18 months before intervention, about 18 months after intervention. And in each case, you can see a significant improvement in average daily gain, a significant reduction in mortality in both the nursery and the finish flow. So again, kind of field-based evidence, of a PRRS intervention strategy using vaccine, generating that direct benefit, improved health and performance. All right. Direct benefit. Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about that next little circle in the funnel called indirect benefit, the role of vaccine-derived immunity, indirect benefit, the role in reducing wild-type virus shedding. Okay? Is it real? Well, it is. If we focus on that second bullet point, in addition to improving health and performance, it would be really, really important if vaccine-derived immunity strategies implementing vaccine in a systematic process, reduce aerosol shedding, reduce the amount of PRRS virus circulating within and between vaccinated herds. So we designed studies to shed light on that. I'll try to go through these relatively quickly. This first one, and you might think we should have done this, as a second one because it's it's a therapeutic model, and we don't typically use vaccines that way. But our collaborator, the Pipestone Research Group, along with Daniel Linares and John Paul Cano, wanted to look at the therapeutic role of vaccine in the reduction of wild-type virus. So we'll walk through this really quick, all right? This was published in 2012 in Vaccine. And again, this is in a growing pig model. We utilized research, what I would call commercial research, wean-to-finish facilities. And you can see a schematic of those in the upper right-hand corner. We had a control group and a vaccinated group. As these pigs were entered into this facility, they were challenged on day 0 with a 118.2 virus strain, which was resident to that area of the country, okay? Then, twice, at day 8 and at day 36, they got the vaccinated room, or the vaccination treatment group got vaccinated twice following an infection. And then to measure excretion of wild-type virus post-inoculation, we had bioaerosol collectors outside each treatment room, and we collected bioaerosol samples 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, from 8 to 8:30 every day for 118 days, looking at the detection of aerosolized wild-type virus. And would we see a difference between the vaccinated group and the non-vaccinated group in a therapeutic model? Worst case scenario, probably. What did we see? Well, lo and behold, if you look at the highlighted yellow portion of that table, we saw a reduction in the number of positive detection days. Okay? In the vaccinated group, 17 compared to 31, which was a significant difference, a significant reduction in the frequency of wild-type virus shedding and detection. And the duration was reduced. 45 days, those 17 positive detection days occurred over 45 days of duration compared to 70 for the control. So a reduction in the frequency and the duration of wild-type aerosol shedding vaccinates compared to non-vaccinates. Well, that's good. Evidence of an indirect benefit. Well, then we thought, let's look at that same, kind of use the same model, same design, but use vaccine in a prophylactic manner, like what's more typically used by everyone in this room. So in this particular case, we used the same research facility. We had controls and vaccinates in 2 separate rooms, and we vaccinated. The vaccinated room was vaccinated at day 0. The pigs were 3 to 4 weeks of age, and then we challenged both rooms, okay, 28 days later. So vaccination followed by challenge, the prophylactic model. And then, like we did in the previous example, we had bioaerosol collectors outside of each room collecting samples daily for 118 days. What do we find? Well, you've already seen it. In the vaccinated treatment room, we had 4 positive detection days out of the 118 compared to 21 for the non-vaccinated room. So a significant reduction in the frequency of positive wild-type virus collection. And the duration of those detections was significantly reduced as well. 6 days is the duration of the wild-type virus detection days for the vaccinates compared to 36 for the non-vaccinates. All right. So evidence that the indirect benefit is real relative to vaccine-derived immunity. This is an important thing to minimize chance of aerosol spread within farms, within farms, systems, and regions. I had the girls in the office help me with this little schematic, and on the left would be a depiction of a non-vaccinated site where you could have virus moving from farm A to farm B, but due to the indirect benefit, the vaccine-derived immunity, possibly, we have less transmission, less challenge in transmission in vaccinated populations, less risk of transmission due to the indirect benefit. All right. So here's that same slide, that same large-scale long-term PRRS control project that Chris helped us with, and I just want you now to focus on figure 1 on the left-hand side of that slide. One of the things we wanted to measure, in addition to improved health and performance, is could we reduce the level of resident circulating wild-type virus in that system over time. So 15 to 18 months later, you'll see that we went from 100% positive detections, or the proportion of wild-type virus detected in the system before we started the program was essentially 100%. When we went out and sampled growing pig populations, we found wild-type virus 100% of the time. 15 to 18 months later, that was reduced to 49.6% as a proportion of wild-type PRRS virus before and after. So again, field-based, real-world examples of the indirect benefit of vaccine-derived immunity in a PRRS control methodology. All right. So again, if we want to just refer as a summary, the role of vaccine for PRRS control, the direct and indirect benefit, kind of a two-pronged approach to the benefit of vaccine-derived immunity. Mitigating the consequence of infection, improve health and performance, while also reducing the level and load of virus within and between vaccinated populations. Important. So finally, that gets us to even more current, and the highlighted question number 2 came up in our group. Given that the direct and indirect benefit, especially that indirect benefit, if we maintain uniform immunity within and between populations of pigs, we're likely to reduce the level of virus, resident virus, and the challenge load and level of resident virus. Has anybody looked at the challenge dose effect in vaccinated populations? Is there a challenge dose where vaccine actually prevents the consequences of infection? Well, the answer to that was no. No one's really looked at that. So we designed a study to take a look at that. This could be really applicable to system-based programs and area regional control programs. So I just want to really basically walk you through this study. And on the lower left, it's a little more complicated than the previous studies, but on the lower left you can see a table that kind of summarizes the study design. And we have 5 treatment groups. The first 4 treatment groups have both vaccinated pigs, 10 vaccinated, with 10 non-vaccinated matched pigs, okay? So treatment group 1 through 4, 10 vaccinates, 10 non-vaccinates, and those are challenged at different levels, okay? To assess the effect of challenge dose, treatment group 1 is challenged with 4 logs. That's a pretty high challenge dose. Treatment group 2 is challenged at 3 logs. Treatment group 3, 2 logs, and of course then treatment group 4 is challenged at 1 log, vaccinates and non-vaccinates. Okay, then group 5 is a vaccinated treatment group that's not challenged as a comparison. Pretty similar then to the previous studies, these pigs are vaccinated at day 0. They're challenged with SDSU 73, which is a good reference challenge isolate that we use and have used for several years and creates some pretty significant clinical disease. And then we evaluated these pigs specifically, viremia post-challenge, average daily weight gain, and temperature, okay, from day 28 to day 70. We terminated this study at day 70, so a larger or longer post-challenge period. What did we find? All right. So bear with me here. I'm going to summarize this study by looking at the 4-log challenge group, that really high level of challenge, and then the 2-log challenge group. The 4 and the 3-log challenge group are essentially the same. Okay, the outcomes and the measured parameters are about the same. And the 2-log challenge group and everything below the 2-log challenge group was essentially the same. So we can summarize this study by looking at those 2 challenge groups. In the 4-log challenge group, that red line at the top with the squares represents the non-vaccinated challenge animals, and the lighter blue line are the vaccinated challenge animals, and the dark blue line are the vaccinated non-challenged animals. Okay, and that's pretty similar through the rest of these. What do we see? Well, in the vaccinated challenged animals, the typical post-challenge reduction of viremia. We see it just about we see it every time we do a study like this. Pretty typical in a high-log challenge. All right. What about that 2-log challenge? Well, this is interesting. If you see the red line representing the non-vaccinates, again, a pretty similar profile, high level of challenge or high level of post-challenge viremia for a long period of time. And that light blue line, the reduction in post-challenge viremia, really that pattern of post-challenge viremia mimics the vaccinated non-challenge group. There's really little or no difference between the vaccinated challenge and the vaccinated non-challenge group. That's really interesting. All right, well, let's look at fever. And quite frankly, I think we underestimate the impact that fever has on pigs and pig performance. That's why I really like this table, and I think we need to maybe focus on the impact of fever more than we do in studies like this and in the field as well. So here the vaccinated groups had significant decrease in the fever days and lower average fever across all challenge groups. Whether it's 4 logs or 1 log, you can see that the fever was significantly reduced at all challenges, or all challenge levels in the vaccines. In the control group, there's a measurable negative impact at each challenge dose. Whether you gave them 1 log, a little bit of virus, or 4 logs, a lot of virus, the impact relative to fever and fever days was significant. But here's the kicker. At 2 logs or less, okay, the vaccinated animals challenged with 2 logs or less, like we saw in viremia, were not different than the pigs not challenged at all. If you look at the average fever days, it's like it didn't happen. There's no difference between the vaccinated challenge at 2 logs and those animals not challenged at all. It's interesting. What do you suppose we see with average daily weight gain? Well, it's similar. We saw significantly higher average daily weight gain in the vaccinates compared to the non-vaccinated at all challenge levels. And again, like viremia and like fever, the measurable negative impact was significant in the non-vaccinates. Whether it was a little bit of virus, 1 log, or a lot of virus, 4 logs, there's no significant difference between the average daily weight gain. It's meaningful. Whether it's a little bit of virus or a lot, in the non-vaccinates, immunity matters. The impact is severe in non-vaccinates. But again, like we saw in viremia and average daily weight gain, viremia and temperature, vaccinated animals challenged with 2 logs or less performed as well as the animals that weren't challenged at all. It's like it didn't happen. It's a real blunting effect at that 2 log challenge level in vaccinates. It's pretty interesting. So this is another way to look at that same information. This is something that Xavi and his team put together. It's pretty cool. It's a video. Cross your fingers, I think it'll work. And I just want to walk you through it and orient you. It's just another way to look at the same information because it's a complicated study with a lot of moving parts. So buckle in, here we go. You'll see in the circles that there's going to be bubbles, and each bubble corresponds to a treatment group. So you have the vaccinates with a 4 log challenge, a vaccinate with a 2 log challenge, non-vaccinates with a 4 and the 2 log challenge, and then of course the vaccinated non-challenge controls. Hope you're not confused yet. I get myself confused. All right, so pay attention to those bubbles. On the left, which would be the y-axis, that's going to represent percent PCR positives as this study progresses. So you'll see the post-challenge viremia response in the different treatment groups. On the bottom is weight gain, live weight. So you'll see the difference in the separation as it regards weight gain between the treatment groups. And the color of the bubbles will represent temperature. Okay, so red is high temperature or fever, and you'll see some difference between the treatment groups as those bubbles move across that graph via color and representing rectal temperature. And then the size of the bubble will represent viral load. So same information we saw on the table, just a different representation. Okay, Xavi, it should work. Here we go. So this is day 0. You can see the days going by up there. And this is all the pre-challenge period, post-vaccination pre-challenge. So you can see all the vaccinates up there, the controls are at the bottom. They haven't been vaccinated. Now they're going to get challenged pretty quick right now. So we're going to see some viremia following challenge. It was interesting that there was no difference in weight gain between vaccinates and non-vaccinates before the challenge. That's nice. So you can see, keep your eyes on the control pigs, the non-vaccinates. The level of viremia stays high as we progress, but the non-challenged pigs and the 2 log vaccinated pigs, those 2 bubbles, they overlap and they flow about the same, and the 4 log vaccinated group is not far behind them. That vaccinated 2-log group performed really, really well. So you can see there's separation in viremia, difference in temperature, as well as weight gain. And what's cool, again, is the pigs vaccinated and challenged with 2 logs really behave like the pigs that weren't challenged at all through this whole thing. All right, very good. So, just to summarize quickly, get back to that question. Is there a challenge dose where vaccination prevents the consequences of infection? At least relative to this study, the answer would be yes. In this study, at a challenge level of 2 logs or less, the consequence of that challenge in vaccinated pigs were not different than the pigs that weren't challenged at all, okay? So this is the bigger question. What the heck does that mean? What's that mean to you, I, everybody in this room, and beyond that, our customers outside this room? Well, I think if we think about that direct and indirect benefit, that 2-pronged benefit of vaccine-derived immunity, and we incorporate that in a systematic fashion within and between pig populations, we can begin not only improving health and performance, but beating down that level of virus. That's important. Beating down that level of virus, reducing transmission risk, and have populations where resident virus is still present, but at a lower level, and the consequences of that lower level of virus in vaccinated population becomes much less consequential. So it's all about maintaining uniform immunity within and between populations over time, supporting systematic programs, system-based programs, area regional control, some of the things that Dale was talking about earlier. All right, and again, last time you'll see this slide, but I want to throw it up because I think there's evidence that this can be done, and this large-scale, long-term PRRS control project is, in my mind, evidence of that in a system-based approach for PRRS control. So I've been rambling on here talking about system-based approach or PRRS control methodology. You know, what does that mean? What does that look like? You'll probably see a slide like this later this afternoon. Dr. Eduardo Fano in our group is going to talk about what we call the infection chain prevention chain, and this is just a slide that depicts, you know, kind of the methodology that we try to employ with our customers. And the infection chain prevention chain is really step 2 of Dale's 5-step program that he talked about just before me. And what it does, it was kind of built with PRRS in mind, but it fits for anything. It fits for mycoplasma or for flu or pick your pathogen, but it's understanding the status and the circulation pattern of the PRRS virus by phase of production. Okay, it's a systematic approach, understanding the pattern of circulation, the status of the virus by phase of production. So gilt pool, breeding herd, growing pig. Where's the virus at? How is it circulating? How is it transmitting? And what's the bioeconomic impact of it? Once we understand that, then we can use some surgical precision in developing an intervention based on maximizing immunity, minimizing exposure, using complementary components, other complementary components of PRRS control with vaccine to mitigate, okay, that circulation pattern and the bioeconomic impact it has by phase of production, okay? Simply stated in gilt pools in a general sense, it would be immunizing gilts to prepare, develop, and introduce an immune and non-infectious gilt, okay? Maintain a uniform level of immunity in your breeding herd, okay? So that you have little, if any, circulating virus in the breeding herd, optimally weaning negative pigs. And then growing pigs that are at risk of being infected, an example would be growing pigs in Iowa. Weaned virus negative, but going to Iowa, southern Minnesota for wean to finish production, likelihood of exposure is very, very high. You'd want to immunize those animals, protect them, and improve health and performance should they get exposed to the virus. So that gets us back to our final slide looking at that PRRS cloud. And I think what I've tried to do today is just present in a really quick way, in a general way, kind of the pathway we've taken to generate a body of evidence demonstrating the direct benefit of vaccine, reducing clinical disease, the indirect benefit of vaccine-derived immunity, reducing the level of virus within and between vaccinated populations, and then taking that and packaging it in a PRRS control methodology, okay, along with other complementary components of PRRS control, biosecurity, pig flow, husbandry, for the best PRRS control principles, maximizing immunity, minimizing exposure, meeting the expectations of our customers. And that's really it. Thank you for your attention.